future belongs to service providers who innovate without limits. That's why the fastest growing service providers are choosing the NetSapiens platform. Visit netsapiens.com.
Hey everybody, it's Doug Green and I'm the publisher of Technology Reseller News, and I'm very pleased to have with us today Jezebel Gilmore, General Manager and Vice President, Service Provider at KentiK. Jezebel, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Doug. It's great to be here.
Well, we're going to be talking about how world infrastructure and operational challenges are challenging service providers as they face ever-growing demands created by the huge amount of data and other things that AI is creating. We're going to be talking about that and what the implications are, what KentiK's ideas are to manage that even better. Jezebel, first of all, what is KentiK?
Well, KentiK is a network intelligence company. We leverage NetFlow, SNMP, synthetics capabilities, and data enhancement to provide actionable insights to anyone who leverages network in their operations.
So why do people turn to KentiK? What they've got a network, they've been managing it, but now they've turned to KentiK. Why do they do that?
Well, because it's very difficult. I think running a business, running a network is really about making good decisions. And to be able to make good decisions, you have to be able to base that on good data. But the network themselves generate so much data, it's very difficult for any human to discern what that data means. So KentiK has created this proprietary platform that allows anyone with network or utilize network to gain insights based on the traffic and the SNMP data and streaming telemetry to provide them with understanding of what does that mean for their business, what's their network is doing, how does that impact their customers, what does it mean based on certain events and incidents, and what's triggering traffic, and where is it coming from, where is it going. All of that at the end of the day impacts how profitable and how well a business is run.
AI workloads are certainly placing new challenges, a lot of pressure on infrastructure. And so, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that has been the speculation for quite a while. And, I think that it is everybody's working to prepare towards it. I don't think that it's quite hit us yet, right? We have great visibility of the global internet, and we're not seeing necessarily the exponential growth based on the AI traffic just yet. But I know a lot of people are anticipating it, right? Because today, with me typing a message or sending an image into an AI to process, it's not going to be equivalent to the kind of data transfer that YouTube and Netflix have, right? However, I think that is coming, right? I think I heard someone say that people are going to be watching AI-generated content in the future. Maybe because I'm not quite there, so I have not been able to imagine it. But I do understand that the east-west traffic, and for people who may not understand what east-west traffic is, it's the server-to-server traffic that goes in between the machines. So the east-west traffic is volumetric, is huge, and that is part of the increase I think that we're going to anticipate first, right? We're hearing data from neoclouds talking about increasing, 5x of the amount of GPUs that they have in the next year. We're hearing statistics such as turning up 10 megawatts of data center every month. And this is individual providers, right? And I think when I started my career too long ago, somebody turning up 1 megawatt, in a year is incredible. It's like, oh my God, they're turning up a megawatt of service, right? Of power that's so much. A whole data center could have 1 megawatt of power. Now, 10 megawatt is what one company would want to turn up every month. So the scale has really increased, right? From the power perspective, from the GPU perspective, but also from the network perspective. We've increased back, I've been in this industry a long time. I remember 1 gig is a lot of traffic, right? And then we moved to 10 gig and we moved to 100 gig. And then, we were talking about 400 gigs. Now we're, on 800 gigs. Now there are people talking about 1.6 terabit interconnects, right? So does that allow us to do more and do more faster? Yes, but it's also more expensive, right? And it allows us to do more over some of the existing infrastructure. But I think that at some point, in fact, I read a statistic that said over 50% of the data center operators expect AI to dominate inter-facility bandwidth within the next 2 to 3 years. And so then, what's going to happen to the within the facility transfer? What about all the other data, right? And do we have the ability to build quickly? So then it comes back to our ability to source, the physical infrastructure, the network. And when people think of network, they're thinking about turning up, a wavelength or a fiber path. But what people don't necessarily think about is when you run out of fiber pairs on the existing route, you need a lot of planning and coordination to either blow a whole new set of fiber into the conduit, or that you have to obtain a whole new set of permits and all kinds of physical requirements across all different kind of regulation bodies to get that built. The physical implementation also takes time. So then it comes back to, well, what can you turn up now? And what can you start to build? And what is the economical way of, it's always a supply and demand. So what is the way to solve the problem? You raise the price on the limited capacity, right? So then it's harder to consume. So I think, there's a lot of capacity at scale is definitely going to be a challenge, but it's not immediate. It's going to be coming, right? I've heard people in the industry say already, had I known what's going to happen with AI, I would have never sold the products I had at the price that we did X number of years ago, right? Like they were in single digit number of years. It's not like they weren't talking about 20 years or 10 years. It was like in single digit number of years. So I think things are changing quickly, but where is it going? How is it going to impact us is still quite unknown to me.
So do you think service providers, where are service providers most likely to encounter operational blind spots?
Well, I think there's a lot, right? Resiliency used to be a good to have. I think that resiliency is going to become mission critical immediately, not just for future, right? So the network service provider, all of the service providers need to immediately start thinking about how do I provide resiliency in the service that we offer today. And there's definitely a gap in visibility, right? Especially for the AI era networks. And I think that network observability tools were built, the legacy network observability tools were built for a different era. And today's blind spots includes, encrypted traffic, east-west AI agent traffic, hybrid cloud. So all of that, and GPU to GPU telemetry, right? All different types of traffic that the traditional flow SNMP tools simply cannot capture. And 90% of the organizations are now using multiple tools or has been using multiple tools, trying to figure out what's happening on their network. And I think also, we talk about, applying observability or, leveraging a visibility for AI, but we also need to think about how to leverage AI in how we operate networks. And I think that it's catch-22. We have to have better visibility and to be able to leverage AI, but we need to also leverage AI to help us to have better visibility and deciphering that traffic, that data that we get from the network, so that we can have real-time or near real-time decisions, right, and interpretations of the data, so that we can make better decisions. Because if I get the data 24 hours, the insight 24 hours from now, what good does it do for me?
Profitability pressures, but then you also have to modernize the network, probably modernize the network really quickly. Mm-hmm. Do you see this as a conflict?
Well, I think rather than calling it a conflict, I would say that it's dynamic, right? It's a dynamic of doing business as a service provider. There's always going to be balance between profitability, performance, and ability to scale, right? So and you can either have it quickly or you can have it expensively or cheaply, whichever way you want to look at it, or you can have it, with better performance. So to me, it's never one or the other. Or, I think in the past, people have said, oh, you can only choose 2 out of 3. I think it has to be a careful balance, because it has to move holistically in order to respond to the AI era, right? There's a lot of unknown. There's a ton of technology improvements, BGP and routing complexity at scale, the more traffic, inference at the edge, right? Needing more contact points, and the high volume data exchange between the training, the agents, that we're trying to train, that all of those require additional complexity in BGP and routing at scale. And I think that is going to cause some friction in the future as well. But, for most of the systems are not designed to be latency sensitive, and which future applications will require them to be, right? Especially with inference. And that's where I think we're going to have to invest some more, both technology-wise, technically, as well as in figuring out architectural-wise, collectively, how do we make something better? Because it isn't an individual effort either.
You've mentioned some terms here. You've talked about passive observability. I think you've talked about actionable network intelligence. Can you explain what the difference is?
Well, I think the difference is having actionable insights rather than just looking at the data. So, the traditional observability is providing you pretty graphs that you can look at. That is a report afterwards, right? What happened to my network the last 30 days? I want to, the executives of a network wants to know, how's the performance of my network the last month, the last quarter, the last year, right? But today, the network is so complex and it moves so quickly. In order to better troubleshoot, we have to be able to look at that now. And in the past, we relied on individuals, expert, skilled engineers, to be able to guesstimate what is happening in the network. It's going to become more and more difficult to do that for two reasons. The network itself is becoming more complex. There's some more interconnection points, there's more peering, potentially more traffic, right? There's a lot of different things that we could be doing. But also at the same time, we're somewhat losing some of the expertise in networking. A lot of our expert engineers, network engineers that help build the internet are retiring. The new age network engineers are young and energetic, but they're not as experienced. They are trained to use code more, but that doesn't mean that they understand the network as well, and they don't have the experience. So having the actual insight provided to them with machines would allow them to operate much more effectively.
So as we wrap up our podcast today, what's your advice? What should service providers be doing now to prepare for the next phase of AI-driven demand?
Well, to me, I think that, speaking from a selfish perspective, I would love for every service provider to take a look at how KentiK is going to be able to change the way they operate their business if they're not already utilizing KentiK. Because not only that we have the ability to really help them improve their operational efficiency, their costs, their customer experience, but I think that they will also see that it's a way for them to really understand the market and where they stand and how that they can really increase the value of their business. So, and that is in the age of AI, right? KentiK is leveraging AI to help our operators to operate their business more intelligently and more effectively. So I think that take a look at what your gaps are in your network and understanding where the gaps are with a network intelligence platform like KentiK.
Jezebel, I really want to thank you for joining me today. This is really interesting. There's so much more to talk about, but where can we learn more?
Well, so I think if you want to learn more about KentiK, please do come to KentiK.com, and that is KENTIK, and KentiK is Yiddish for visibility, for visible. So, everybody wants to be seen. And so I would like to say, KentiK, I hope you can see better.
All right. Jezebel Gilmore, thank you very much indeed for joining us. I look forward to our next podcast. I hope we do it soon. There's, like I said, a lot to cover, and I bet there'll be more challenges. But for now, thank you very much indeed.
Well, Doug, it's a pleasure for me to be here. Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to our next chat.
Innovate without limits, scale without compromise, and never pay per seat again. Discover why providers choose netsapiens.com.